what you do. No matter who come behind you, people will still be talking about Brother Herb. Right. 30 years from now, you may have somebody else as a musical director, but they'll still be talking about Brother Herb because of what God gave him. Well, that's deep. Yeah. That's honor. Then he went on to say, oh my Lord. And if, this verse 14, and if you walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments, as your father David did walk, then I will lengthen your days.
Yeah. Amen.
Now the wisdom and the knowledge and understanding is automatic, because that's what he asked for.
Right.
And then the riches and the honor is automatic because God said, I'm going to give it to you. But God put one condition on lengthening his days and letting him live a long life. He said, you got to walk in my ways. You got to walk before me upright, and I'll let you live a long time. Everything else, I'm going to give it to you. But if you want to live a long life and enjoy all that money that I'm giving you, if you want to be one that have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and live a long life to use that knowledge, he said, you got to walk before me as your father David did. So God gives him all of this. And he began operating and doing the right thing. And then he decided he wanted to build God a temple, a house. His daddy wanted to, but God wouldn't let David do it. But then here comes Solomon, and God gave Solomon the opportunity to build him a house. That was the honor there. So let's go and look at verse chapter 9. And the Bible will tell you that Solomon had it all. He had it all. And his servants, you know, it's one thing, Brother Barry, to be a king and have servants under you. And usually, the servants don't like the king. Usually, you know, they don't like their boss. Usually, they don't like the director. But they love Solomon. They love him. Because he had it all together. So let's look at 1 Kings chapter 9, and we're going to look at verse 1. God going to make a covenant with Solomon. This is after he built the temple. And it reads verse 1. It said, and it came to pass when Solomon had finished the building of the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all of Solomon's desire which he had pleased to do, that the Lord appeared to Solomon the second time, as he had appeared unto him at Gibeon. And the Lord said unto him, I have heard your prayers and your supplications that you have made before me. I have hallowed this house which you have built, to put my name there forever, and my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. God said, this house that you just built for me, he said, I will always have my eye there. My presence will always be there. So anytime you wanted to get close to the Lord or come in the presence of God, all you had to do was go to the temple. Ain't that something? And he said in verse 4, and if you walk before me as David your father walked. How did David walk? He said, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded you, and will keep my statutes and my judgments. Then I will establish the throne of your kingdom upon Israel forever, as I promised to David your father, saying, there shall not fail you a man upon the throne of Israel. So he makes David this promise of Solomon. This is God making a covenant with Solomon, and he tells Solomon that if you walk right, if you do the right thing, he said, I'll establish your throne forever. He said, you'll be king over Israel forever. So I'm thinking about this. How can a man be king forever if he's going to die one day? way this can happen is his seed, his children, will carry on as king. They will always sit on the throne. In other words, he would have a son that would come and sit on the throne. It would be like like Solomon still sitting there. It's sort of like if Pastor Karen was to pass on and Mikey become the pastor of the Dallas International Street Church. And then Mikey have children, he pass on, and his children inherit the church, and their children inherit the church. That's keeping the throne on Solomon. But he said on one condition, Solomon, you got to walk like David walked. Amen. And not only that, he promised him that his seed, that they will always rule over Israel. In other words, it would never be divided. You will always have somebody from your seed to rule the entire nation of Israel. But you got to walk right. Then we read in verse 6. He said, but if you shall at all turn from following me, you or your children, and will not keep my commandments and my statutes, which I have set before you, but go and serve other gods and worship them, then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them. Wait a minute now. Not only did God say that if you mess up, Solomon, you ain't going to rule forever, and your children are not going to rule forever, but he also told them that if you mess up, Solomon, I'm going to punish the people too. That's why it's important that as a leader, we do it right. Because when we fail and we fall and we mess up, God is holding you responsible for everybody else. I mean, if the king lived right, the people will live right. If the king served well, the people will. If the king honor God and worship God and hold God to a high esteem, the people will. But when the people see the king fall away from God, when they see the leader.
Good. That's good. Come on. Amen.
So God said, I'm going to have to destroy the people too. Because of you. Verse 6 again, he said, but if you shall at all turn from following me, you or your children, and will not keep my commandments and my statutes, which I have set before you, but go and serve other gods and worship them, then will I cut off Israel out of the land which I have given them, and this house. You remember the temple that Solomon took all this time building? This temple that he put so much money into? He said, this house, which I have hallowed for my name, will I cast out of my sight. And Israel shall be a proverb and a byword among all people. In other words, where everybody's saying the people of God, the house of God, he said they're going to have jokes and remarks. They're going to talk about this place.
Mm-hmm.
A byword is something like
Gossip. Oh.
Turn the sound off. A byword is like nigger.
Excuse me. They want to have a go to the stand. We want them to go to homeward bound. For what reason?
Where can't go now because he was supposed to go take this text that if Solomon or his children mess up, he said, this house, this temple that you built for me and that I sanctified and hallowed, he said it's going to become a byword and a proverb.